I was 3 days old. I have been studying the topic of adoption for the past 3 weeks, and I wanted to share my findings with you today. I will tell you about what adoption is, what types of adoption there are, and how much adoptions cost. What is adoption? Is it just taking in someone else's child they don't want? What kinds of adoptions are there? I'll give you a little history of adoption. In 1851, in Massachusetts, they signed the first law, and it was called the 1851 Adoption of Children Act. And it was the first law that actually made adoption a legal process. In 1894, New York Children's Aid Society funded the orphan trains and started sending children from the war to be adopted by families. In 1910, the first specialized adoption agencies actually opened. I was adopted when I was 3 days old, and my parents adopted me through a private adoption process. My parents met my mother through family members, and then they legally adopted me a year later. I went through an adoption process called independent private adoption. There are other kinds of adoptions through the domestic adoption process. Foster care adoption is where you take in foster children and then you decide to adopt them later on. Kinship adoption is where you find children that are in your family and that their parents can't take care of them, and you take them in and adopt them. Domestic infant adoption is where you find children through agencies and through other types of places where you adopt children. Customary Native American adoption is the tribal adoption ceremonies for children in the Native American culture. And independent private adoptions is where you get an attorney and you find a family and you do adoption through attorneys. Inter-country adoptions are also done, and that's where you find children from different countries and you adopt them and bring them to the United States. Now let's take a look at the different types of adoptions. There are two types, open adoptions and closed adoptions. Open adoptions have many benefits and many disadvantages. For instance, open adoptions, the birth children and the birth parents know each other, and so they can find out their history and if they have heart problems or diseases or things like that. Some of the disadvantages, though, is that you can always feel like that they're not really your children, and their birth parents could come back and take them away at any moment. Closed adoptions are a little easier because one of the benefits is that you don't know, they don't know their real parents, so you're always their real parents, and you can always have that comfort. But one of the disadvantages is that you don't know their birth history all the time, and sometimes you don't know if they're predisposed to certain diseases or conditions. According to adoption.com, in the state of Texas, adopted adults age 18 or older can use the state adoption registry to obtain identifying information about their birth parents, and this registry is provided through either the agency that they are adopted from or through the Texas Department Health Bureau of Vital Statistics. And different state legislators have different laws regarding finding information about birth parents. Now let's discuss costs. How much do adoptions actually cost? Well, it all depends. Adoption costs differ from public agencies to private agencies. According to babycenter.com, a website sponsored by Johnson & Johnson family of companies, private adoption agencies can cost from $4,000 to $30,000, whereas public adoption agencies can cost from $0 to $2,500. Now let's look back at the things we learned about adoption. We learned that what adoption is, what different types of adoptions there are, and how much they actually cost. I hope this information was interesting, and I look forward to answering any questions.